Hi everyone, and welcome to week 5 of Poppa's Picks, brought to you by FantasyDonks.com, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know to start playing daily fantasy football. I'm Sean Big Poppa Williams, and this week we're going to give you a little twist on Poppa's Picks. We're going to be running it through the lens of the DraftKings site, as this week is the Millionaire Maker. That's right, one person will be crowned a millionaire after the games wrap up on Monday night. How exciting. And you can join this amazing contest for only $27 using any of the links on FantasyDonks.com. So without further ado, let's go on right to the picks for Poppa's for this week of the NFL season. At quarterback, the number one pick we have is Phillip Rivers at $7,000. He is versus the New York Jets, and the Jets are the 31st ranked defense against opposing quarterbacks. They give up an average of 22 fantasy points per game, and Rivers is the number 2 fantasy quarterback over the last 3 weeks. I like him to have a huge game against the Jets defense, so let's go to the number 2 pick for this week, and that's Ben Roethlisberger at a $7,400 price tag against Jacksonville. The Jaguars are giving up over 24 points to opposing quarterbacks, making them dead last in the NFL. The Jags D seems to be a cure-all, even though Ben Roethlisberger hasn't had the best few weeks. I expect him to have a monster against Jacksonville. Just a little bit of a heads up and a warning here. The Jags are also terrible against the run game, as we've talked in previous weeks. Blunt and Bell could have a monster, and that could decrease Ben Roethlisberger's point totals. I think Roethlisberger will still be able to put up points, and I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to just destroy the Jaguars like everyone else has. The third quarterback I have for you this week is Russell Wilson, and he carries with him a $7,600 price tag, and they are playing at Washington. Washington is a bottom 3 defense against opposing quarterbacks this year, and they have a top 3 run defense. Everyone has passed all over this secondary. I expect Russell Wilson to do the same. As Washington is a better run defense, I expect them to handle Skittles fairly well on Monday Night Football. Look for Russell Wilson to make up the difference and have a monster game. I like him as a play, even at his $7,600 price tag. The number 4 quarterback I have for you this week is the Red Rifle, Andy Dalton of the Bengals. He is at a $6,800 price tag and is at New England Patriots this week. The Patriots look broke. I don't know what else to say about them. You saw what the Chiefs and Alex Smith were able to do to them last week. Look for the Red Rifle and Andy Dalton to put a whooping on Brady and company this week. After all, it's a short week coming off Monday Night Football's beating at the hands of the Chiefs, and I don't think that they've got any of their problems solved. The Red Rifle and the Bengals all make sexy plays this week in daily fantasy sports. The number 5 quarterback I have for you, and that is this week's risk and reward play, is Austin Davis of the Rams at Philadelphia. Now, you might be saying, Austin Davis, why would I want to play him against at all in daily fantasy sports? Well, at a $5,600 price tag, he comes in as one of the cheapest starting quarterbacks, and actually the cheapest starting quarterback with the best point totals. Austin Davis put up a nice little line before the bye week against Dallas at 25 plus points, and the Philly secondary is actually worse against opposing quarterbacks than Dallas was. So I was expect him to have a monster at this cheap price tag. That will help you stud up at either running back or wide receiver or even at tight end. And I think that might make that might make the difference this week in the Millionaire Maker when you're competing against such a big prize fields, excuse me. Now let's move on to running backs. The first running back I have for you on the board should be no surprise, is Giovanni Bernard at a $6,700 price tag. Like I said earlier, the Bengals are at the New England Patriots. The Patriots look broke on a short week, and Jamal Charles ran all over them last week. I think you can expect more of the same from Giovanni Bernard. At a $6,700 price tag, it's very sexy for the matchup he has. The number 2 running back I have for you this week is Le'Veon Bell of the Steelers at a $7,300 price tag at Jacksonville. The analysis I gave you earlier is just true. Jacksonville is terrible against the run. They're also terrible against the pass. everybody on both the running side and the receiving side has their way with this Jacksonville defense. I think it's possible for Bell to have a monster and for Roethlisberger to have a monster. I think these make good plays. You have to pay up a little bit for Le'Veon, but I think he may be worth it this week. Le'Veon has been disappointing in the past couple weeks since he put up that monster week 1. Look for him to rebound here. I think the Jags defense is that medicine he needs to get better. The third running back I have for you this week is Rashard Jennings of the New York Giants versus the Atlanta Falcons. Jennings had a bad week last week against the stingy Redskins run defense. I would look for ownership of Rashard Jennings to be low because of that factor. I think he gets a great chance to rebound this week against the statistically worst run defense in the NFL in the Atlanta Falcons. Everybody's been running all over them. I would look for Rashard Jennings to do more of the same. That leads us to the number 4 running back I have for you this week, which is that of Bishop Sankey of the Tennessee Titans at $4,700 on DraftKings. Versus the Browns. Sankey has seen more action and more reps and has outperformed Green in the past 2 weeks. I would look for them to continue the same and increase Sankey's workload against the Browns team that is second to last in the NFL in run defense. I like this play this week at $4,700. He's dirt cheap. I'm really contemplating putting him on one of my millions teams, and I think you should as well. The number 5 running back I have for you is a risk-reward play, and that is Jeremy Hill. Jeremy Hill of the Cincinnati Bengals is playing the Patriots defense, and we've covered this matchup before. But Jeremy Hill has a $3,000 price tag with him, which is min value across DraftKings. I think at min price, he makes a sexy play here. He's already averaging right around 10 points a game as is and seeing an increased workload. I think that if this game gets out of hand at all, Jeremy Hill will receive a lot of carries after Giovanni's already put up points. I think Jeremy Hill at $3,000 against this broken Patriots defense makes an extremely sexy play that could reward you amazing dividends when all is said and done this week in fantasy football. But now that we've covered running backs, let's move right along to wide receivers. And the number 1 wide receiver I have for you this week is also one of the most pricey wide receivers, but I have to put him on this list because he seems matchup proof and seems to perform even at the expensive price tag, is Antonio Brown of the Steelers at Jacksonville. He's $8,100 on DraftKings, but he is a monster. The only problem is at that price tag, it really does handcuff what you can do at quarterback and at the other wide receiving spots, or at running back. I think you're better off maybe fading him this week and going elsewhere. But the second I say fade him, that's the week Antonio Brown will put up 35 points against the Jaguars. I will own some Antonio Brown. Just know that when you buy Antonio Brown, you're going to have to structure your team a little bit differently to get him in there with that expensive price tag. The number 2 wide receiver I have for you this week is Brian Quick of the Rams. The Rams are at Philadelphia, and Quick has been a consistent monster for the Rams offense. He's Austin Davis's favorite target, and he's been consistently putting up a 15-point per week mark. I think that is the ceiling for him the floor for him this week. I think his ceiling could be closer to 25-30. I like Brian Quick at $5,900. I think you should be on him as well. That leads us to the number 3 wide receiver I have selected for you this week, and that's Brandon Cooks of the New Orleans Saints at a $4,700 price tag versus Tampa Bay. Cooks is dirt cheap across the industry and seems to show up every other week for a decent game. Guess what? This is the every other week. He's supposed to have a good game this week. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a horrendous secondary, ranking in the bottom 2 in the league. They're actually 31st against opposing wide receivers. I think this makes a sexy play. I think most people will probably be on Colson or Graham. Cooks makes a great play at $4,700. The 4th wide receiver I have for you this week is Vincent Jackson of the Buccaneers at $5,900 at the New Orleans Saints. Jax saved his day last week with a late touchdown, but he saw a boatload of targets. I think that with Mike Evans out this week because of a groin injury, I think you're only going to see more targets to Vincent Jackson. Vincent Jackson at a $5,900 price tag makes a great play. I would encourage you to snatch some of them up. The only problem here is whether or not Vincent Jackson will catch all the targets he receives. The number 5 play I have for you at wide receiver, and that's the risk-reward play of the week, is that of Eddie Royal of the Chargers at $4,400. He's extremely underpriced versus the Jets. Everyone torches the Jets secondary this year. I expect most people will be on Keenan Allen after Keenan Allen finally came out of his shell last week. But the funny story here is Eddie Royal put up a 30-plus pointer last week, more points than Keenan Allen, and is way cheaper. I like Eddie Royal, but keep in mind he does come with a little bit of risk, but I think he can put up a monster this week and climb the brackets in the tournament play this week for the Millionaire Maker. Now that we wrapped up wide receiver, let's move right along to tight end and wrap today up. At the first tight end spot, we have Heath Miller at a $4,000 price tag. Heath Miller of the Steelers is at Jacksonville. You know I like to pick on the Jags, but it pays off every week. They're the second worst team in the NFL against opposing tight ends. Heath Miller had a 10-plus reception game last week, a monster. Look for him to do more of the same against Jacksonville. And at the $4,000 price tag, he doesn't have to do a whole lot to be worth his value. I love that play this week. The number 2 tight end I have for you is Julius Thomas at $6,900 for the Broncos against the Cardinals. The Cardinals are still near the bottom of the league and against opposing tight ends. Let's be honest, Julius has Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning is amazing. Peyton Manning will throw him the ball, and Julius has a touchdown in each of the first 3 games that the Broncos have played this season. I like Julius to repeat in the touchdown category and look for him to have anywhere between 5 to 10 catches for 100-plus yards. That's the line I'm calling for him this week. I think it's safe. I think it's a safe bet. The third tight end I have for you this week is Delanie Walker of the Tennessee Titans. He carries a $4,300 price tag, which is way underpriced. He's playing the Browns. This CMSU alumni, woot woot, has yet to disappoint us in this fantasy year. He is the Titans' primary receiver and primary target. He has a great matchup against the Browns. Look to him to also have a 15-plus point day, and at the $4,300 price tag, that is extremely sexy. The fourth tight end I have for you this week is Owen Daniels at $3,300 of the Ravens. He's at the Colts. The Colts are extremely weak against the tight end. They're a bottom 5 team against the tight end position. Kubiak's offense for the Ravens relies heavily on the tight end, opening up, getting fed early and often so the running lanes can open up. I like Owen Daniels here. Remember, Owen Daniels just a few years ago was not only the top tight end, but the top wide receiver in football before he got injured. And the number 5 spot I have for you this week is the biggest risk-reward play you could possibly make, and that is of Luke Wilson at $3,000. He's a minimum price on the site of the Seahawks at Washington. This pick is the ultimate contrarian risk-reward pick because nobody will probably be on him. I look for Luke Wilson to have a pretty decent game. He's only caught 1 ball so far in the season, but the Seahawks are literally out of options at tight end. He is the only one and the only one that can catch passes. Look for him to have a monstrous game on Monday Night Football. I think he makes a great contrarian play. I hope you enjoyed Poppa's picks for this week. Hopefully you're entering the Millionaire Maker and going to compete against me and some of my other friends. And hopefully one of us takes down that $1 million prize pool. Remember, you can join that Millionaire Maker for $27 using any of the links on fantasydonks.com. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to get back at us either on Facebook, on Twitter, or on our site. At Twitter, you can reach me at Big Poppa Debate. That's BIGPOPPADB8. And have a great one, and hopefully let's take down this $1 million.